I do not own Star Trek, or any of the related characters. Star Trek is a mark owned by Paramount. This story is a work of fanfiction and is for entertainment only. I am not making profit from this story. This is a tribute. All rights of Star Trek belong to Paramount. This fanfiction takes place between the second and third movies of the Kelvinverse.
Star Trek Reloaded. Chapter 5 Bis. Summit. Watching a movie already seen, the Spock from the future presided over the long discussion between Captain Kirk and the temporal policeman.
It's curious how the fate of the universe is discussed within the walls of a modest hotel.
He thought absently. His gaze fell on his young incarnation. The Spock of the present sat motionless in a corner, looking into space and softly pronouncing an interminable mantra, the Ka Dith, preparatory to concentration and the elimination of illogical thoughts. Kirk couldn't even find his position on the chair in that hotel room. He got up and sat down continuously, without stopping gesticulating and often raising his voice at Notby.
You, in fact, you are a raging madman. And these two are no less.
He pointed blatantly at the two Vulcans.
So much that I'm wondering what magic you pulled off to convince them to follow you in this very absurd and messy story. Did you drug them? You know, I don't find anything logical in your reasoning. What is it that fascinates them so much, then?
Notby scratched his head, frustrated.
Spock, I understood that this man could be trusted.
The two Vulcans started to speak in unison, only to stop and, after a quick glance between them, it was the elderly ambassador who replied.
The captain present here is certainly not the Kirk I know. This is absolutely obvious. However, it's true that, ultimately, it's the same person. And I don't know anyone who can help us in our endeavor other than him.
Your business is a crime. He wants to restore the universe he knows at the expense of mine, ours, Spock.
Kirk almost shouted at the young Vulcan. He remained silent for a few seconds, then,
Captain Kirk, this is not about saving our spacetime continuum or theirs. Here we are faced with a much more complex and morally demanding choice between what is right and what is less so.
And who are you to know what is right?
The first officer felt shaken to the last cell of his body, but took no time in responding to Kirk's provocation.
Captain, as I told you, I merged my mind with Captain Notby and I saw authentic memories, not induced memories, not falsehoods. I saw a timeline, this timeline, end in disaster. I saw the Federation defeated, I saw the human race become extinct along with many others. I found myself faced with choices. And I chose. I prefer to completely annihilate my past, and perhaps my future, so as not to allow chaos to take over.
Kirk seemed to think about it for a moment.
But Spock, you will agree that, in the vastness of time, the Federation itself is but a drop in the ocean. Even the Federation, like everything else, like our lives, will not last forever, and it is extremely arrogant to claim to dominate the events of the time. We have no right to do so.
To tell the truth,
the elderly Vulcan intervened.
It's a right that the Kirk I know has claimed for himself several times, with success too.
Ambassador, I am James Tiberius Kirk, but, evidently, I am not your Kirk.
I understand that you are afraid, Captain. We live the time of a blink of an eye in this enormous and mysterious cosmos. Every conscious being in the universe has asked himself, is asking himself and will ask himself, what his purpose is within this infinite mechanism.
Notby crossed his fingers.
And I have no answer to give you, except that the universe, probably, knows even less than us. And we have every right to try to dominate it. In any case, it is obvious, these are temporary victories. Whatever we do, in billions of years every sun will be extinguished, all that will remain will be atoms hibernating in the freezing cold of absolute zero, but, until then, sentient beings will be the masters of space and time, not by divine right but, simply, because we are infinitely more complex than any other natural phenomenon.
Kirk remained silent for a long time.
Let's say.
The words came out with difficulty from the captain's mouth.
that we decide to change events again. You talk about going into the past and making a star implode. Well, maybe in the 30th century these are banal things that they teach in school, but I can assure you that in the current state of our knowledge everything is a little more difficult.
It's a fair consideration,
said the young Spock.
In fact, Captain Notby, we haven't really talked about these details until now.
Notby carefully hid his joy at this first breakdown in Kirk's monolithic beliefs, then said,
I can show you how to go into the past using a normal warp drive ship, and with your computers, I can plan a journey of many decades back in time without fear of ending up who knows where.
And your space-time ship?
The young Vulcan's question was awaited by the captain of the future.
My ship is now an irrecoverable wreck, hidden in a field of New Vulcan, but with a little help I'm sure I can make a crude one, from the propulsion unit, yet efficient implosion bomb.
So do you use artificial black holes to move in space-time?
Notby looked at the ambassador, struck once more by the intelligence and perspicacity of the Vulcan.
Exactly, Spock, exactly like that.
Well,
Kirk gave a sarcastic laugh.
We have the time machine and also the super bomb. Ultimately, Captain, what do you need us for?
The star is in Romulan space, well beyond the neutral zone. I could never get there without the help of a well-armed ship and a motivated crew.
Captain, assuming that no one can help us, I don't see how we could survive the entire Romulan army. We don't know much about them. We fought them decades ago in a long and bloody war without ever seeing one of their faces. Trespassing into their territory and destroying a star will make them quite angry. It's a suicide mission.
Kirk had just finished speaking when the elderly Vulcan intervened again.
Obviously in my time we know them well. Yet such an undertaking would still be outside the possibilities of a 24th-century Federal ship. Certainly not without a cloaking device.
Which we won't have,
replied Notby.
We will have to quickly get into the star's orbit, based on the surprise effect. If we do it in the past we'll be easier, and we'll sure avoid the terrible consequences of Nero's arrival. The odds are in our favor.
Kirk played with his communicator, without missing a word.
Maybe it's possible to get there, but I doubt we can go back.
Notby crossed his arms and shook his head.
Captain, our only purpose is to eliminate that star, the rest won't matter, on the contrary. If we restore the correct my flow of time, we would become an anomaly and we should never show up again in this present. Or we would risk causing what Nero has already caused with his fatal temporal excursions. Differently from him, but we would still be out of place.
Kirk looked at him astonished.
So you mean?
Yes.
Notby nodded his head.
Whether we succeed or not, everyone dying will not be the worst fate.